owes my family an apology.
People always think silence means weakness. They think if a woman isn't yelling, crying on camera, or dragging someone online, then she must be blind, naive, or afraid. But what nobody tells you is that silence is often the loudest warning sign. And in Kimmi's case, that silence was never about fear.
I think some of the stuff needs to be addressed. Like all that extra behind the scene talking with your friends and all that, and you can't say it to a person. Yeah, that's like, yeah.
It was about patience, about survival, about choosing peace while slowly realizing that the man she stood beside might have been standing against her all along. Because when Kimmi finally went off, it wasn't messy, it wasn't impulsive, it was controlled, calculated, and backed by a truth that Maurice could no longer hide. And once the truth came out, there was no unringing that bell. What looked like a picture-perfect marriage began to crack, and behind those cracks was a story filled with betrayal, secrets, and a woman who reached her breaking point at the worst possible time. For years, Kimmi and Maurice were presented as one of the more solid couples in the reality TV world.
Oh, honey, and before you get on social media, TV, YouTube, talking about what you think you know, maybe reach out to the people that you're about to talk about and ask maybe if it's true or not, because it can land you in trouble when you speak of people that's not true.
While others argued, broke up, made up, and embarrassed themselves on screen, Kimmi and Maurice appeared calm, mature, and unshakable. They were the couple people pointed to and said, that's what grown love looks like. Kimmi carried herself with grace. She didn't overreact, she didn't chase drama, she didn't need validation from strangers. And Maurice, he played the role of the supportive husband, the businessman, the man who had it all together. But what people saw on screen was only a fraction of what was happening behind closed doors. Kimmi's journey wasn't easy to begin with.
Or hear me call somebody and say, hey man, or hey lady, your guy's cheating on you.
I don't disagree. I'm not saying that you would. What I am saying is that you don't sit and be complicit in it as far as finishing out the evening. Because I wouldn't want the person that I'm friends with to think that I think this is okay. Even after the words come out of my mouth, your actions speak louder than words.
I believe that actions speak louder than words as well. And I don't know how many phone calls I've had with Melody and Martell about their situation.
I hear what you're saying, and it doesn't change my opinion.
Yeah, we're at an impasse.
She had already been through battles that would have broken most people. Health scares, emotional exhaustion, the constant pressure of showing up strong when your body and spirit are screaming for rest. Through all of that, she leaned on what she believed was a stable marriage, a safe place, someone who had her back when the cameras were off. And that's what makes this story hit harder, because betrayal doesn't hurt the most when things are bad. It cuts deepest when you thought you were safe. At first, nothing was obvious. No dramatic blow-ups, no suspicious lipstick stains, or midnight phone calls that couldn't be explained. Just small shifts. Maurice being gone more than usual, his energy changing, conversations feeling shorter, colder, more distant. Kimmi noticed it, of course. Women always do. But she didn't jump to conclusions. She told herself it was work, stress, the pressure of being in the public eye. After all, they were both juggling a lot, and Kimmi was already carrying enough without creating problems that didn't have proof.
Justin has a point, and sometimes it's hard to hear.
Her eyes were moist too.
When she said, I'm sorry, I love you, yeah. We thought they had a turning point in St. Thomas. Like, by the time we got back, things were very different. Than the energy, Destiny had by the time we got back was different than what we thought we saw while we were there.
But then came the whispers, quiet at first, a comment here, a DM there, people asking questions that felt a little too specific to be random, someone claiming they saw Maurice somewhere he shouldn't have been, someone else hinting that he wasn't alone. Kimmi didn't respond, she didn't clap back, she didn't defend him online, and that's when people should have known something was wrong. Because Kimmi wasn't the type to entertain nonsense, but she also wasn't the type to protect lies. What nobody saw was Kimmi starting to connect dots in silence. The late nights, the sudden privacy around his phone, The way his explanations never quite lined up, but were always just believable enough to avoid confrontation. And when you live with someone long enough, you can feel when their presence changes, when they're physically there, but emotionally somewhere else. That feeling doesn't come from paranoia, it comes from pattern. Instead of exploding, Kimmi observed. She listened more than she spoke. She paid attention to timelines, and eventually, when her intuition refused to quiet down, she made a decision that would change everything. She stopped guessing. She started verifying. What she uncovered wasn't just a misunderstanding. It wasn't innocent. It wasn't a one-time mistake made in weakness. The affair was real, ongoing, and dirtier than anyone expected. This wasn't some random stranger who didn't know better. This was someone who knew Maurice was married, someone who had crossed paths with their lives before. And once Kimmi realized how deep it went, something shifted in her. Because betrayal is one thing, but disrespect layered on top of deception, that's unforgivable. Here's the twist though. Kimmi still didn't rush to the internet. She didn't go live crying. She didn't leak half-truths. She sat with it. She processed it. And while Maurice continued playing normal, continuing life as if nothing was happening, Kimmi was quietly deciding how she would reclaim her power. Because at some point, protecting someone else's image starts costing you your sanity.
When the truth finally surfaced, it didn't come with screaming or chaos. It came with receipts. Clear, undeniable proof that left no room for gaslighting. Messages with timestamps, photos that didn't need explaining, evidence that showed this affair wasn't speculation but reality. And when Kimmi shared what she shared, she did it with a calm that shook people more than anger ever could. It was the calm of someone who had already cried their tears in private. The internet exploded. Fans who once praised Maurice were stunned. People who defended the marriage felt fooled. And those who had sensed something was off felt validated. The support for Kimmi poured in fast. People praised her strength, her restraint, her ability to expose the truth without losing herself in it. But with that support also came judgment, questions about timing, about privacy, about why she chose to go public. And those questions missed the point entirely. Because what if people didn't understand was that Kimmi had already tried silence. She had already tried grace. She had already tried protecting someone who wasn't protecting her. Going public wasn't about revenge, it was about control, about finally telling her own story before someone else twisted it. Maurice, at first, said nothing. No apology, no explanation, just silence. And that silence spoke volumes. But when the pressure became too loud to ignore, he finally responded. First, he tried minimizing it, saying things were taken out of context, suggesting people jumped to conclusions. But once more evidence surfaced, the narrative changed. Suddenly, it was accountability. Suddenly, it was regret. Maurice admitted to cheating, but he didn't stop there. He explained it. He wrapped his betrayal in emotional language, talked about feeling overwhelmed, about losing himself, about mental health struggles, about needing an escape. And while some people sympathized, others saw it for what it was, an attempt to soften the consequences of a decision that had already caused damage. Because here's the hard truth. Struggling doesn't give you permission to destroy someone who stood by you. Feeling lost doesn't excuse lying, and pain doesn't justify betrayal. Kimmi had her own battles, her own fears, her own exhaustion, and yet she remained faithful, she remained honest, she remained present. But just when people thought the story had reached its peak, another layer emerged. Rumors started circulating, attempting to flip the narrative. Anonymous accounts suggesting Kimmi wasn't as innocent as she appeared, hints of her possibly stepping out too. And instead of engaging in back-and-forth chaos, Kimmi did something unexpected. She said very little. A simple post, a quiet message that suggested there was more to the story than people realized. That silence again, heavy, intentional, almost daring people to ask themselves why a woman who had proof, support, and clarity wouldn't feel the need to defend herself against baseless accusations. And that's when some fans began to look back. old episodes, old moments, times when Kimmi seemed drained, distant, and emotionally checked out long before the affair was exposed. And it raised uncomfortable questions. What if this wasn't just about cheating? What if there were layers of emotional neglect, manipulation, or pressure that never made it to the screen? What if Kimmi had been surviving quietly long before she ever spoke up? The emotional fallout didn't stop with them. Their family felt it. Their children felt it. Watching your parents' marriage unravel publicly leaves scars no one talks about enough. And while fans debated sides, real people were dealing with real consequences behind the scenes. The show itself was affected. Producers were forced to decide how much truth to show. Sponsors reconsidered. But ironically, viewership surged because people weren't just watching drama, they were watching a woman choose herself in real time. And Kimmi didn't disappear. She didn't retreat. She stayed visible. She spoke openly about betrayal, about exhaustion, about the pain of holding things together while falling apart inside. She talked about healing, not the Instagram kind, but the uncomfortable, lonely kind that forces you to face truths you avoided for years. What began as a dirty affair exposure turned into something bigger, a conversation about self-respect, about knowing when love stops being safe, about the courage it takes to walk away from an image you worked hard to protect. Kimmi didn't go off like people expected. She didn't lose control. She didn't self-destruct. She went off by standing firm, telling the truth and refusing to shrink herself to protect someone else's lies. And that kind of power, that's the kind that lasts. Now, the question isn't whether Maurice regrets what he did. The question is whether trust can ever be rebuilt once the truth has been dragged into the light, and whether healing really means staying or finally letting go. Because sometimes the loudest statement isn't anger, it's choosing yourself after giving everything to someone who chose differently. And Kimmi, she's already shown she's done choosing silence.